From the moment Tyler came into my world, everything changed. I was just 21 when I had him, young by most standards, and definitely unprepared in the eyes of my family. But I didn't feel unprepared. I felt alive. A bit terrified, sure. But more than anything, I felt like my life had found its purpose. While my friends chased dreams across campuses and danced at parties, I held my baby boy close and whispered promises into the softness of his hair. Tyler and I built our own kind of world. Without a strong marriage to anchor me, I chose to anchor myself to him. His father, a good man in theory but too married to the road as a trucker to be present, drifted in and out of our lives with the seasons. We split without drama, without fireworks. We simply stopped trying to hold on. And though I never spoke badly of him to Tyler, it was always clear he had a mother who was always there and a father who wasn't. Tyler became my companion, my confidant, my constant. From the earliest days, I spoke to him like he was more than a child. I don't mean I burdened him, but I shared things with him the way people do when they've been lonely for a while and finally find someone who truly listens. He was perceptive, even as a boy. I would talk about my friendships, about who hurt me, about the office gossip, or how I felt stuck some days. And Tyler, he listened. Really listened. His young eyes always searching mine like he wanted to understand. As he got older, our bond only deepened. He wasn't just my son, he was my best friend. We laughed together like siblings at times, teased each other like old friends. When he was 14, and I came home after a disastrous date with a man who could barely make eye contact with a waitress, Tyler made me laugh until I cried by mimicking him with exaggerated nervous stutters. We both fell asleep on the couch that night watching old comedy sketches, and I remember thinking he gets me. He truly gets me. Years passed, and while many women my age began settling into second marriages or chasing younger dreams, I stayed single. Not because I couldn't find someone, I had plenty of admirers. I knew I was attractive. I saw the looks, heard the compliments whispered over wine glasses at social mixers. But no one ever felt right. They all lacked something. Maybe it was depth, or maybe it was honesty. Maybe it was simply that none of them made me feel truly seen. That is, until Dylan. I met him at the tennis club. He was tall, lean, with that clean-shaven, salt and pepper look that screamed distinguished without trying too hard. He was charming, quick with compliments, but respectful. We started chatting over coffee after games, and before long, he was asking me to dinner. Tyler knew everything. He always did. I told him about Dylan's career in tech consulting, his ex-wife, his 2 dogs, and the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. "I like him for you," Tyler said one evening as we shared pizza on the porch. "He seems real." "He does," I agreed, though something inside me still felt cautious. "But I don't know. I feel like I'm always waiting for the part where it doesn't work." "You don't have to," he said simply, his gaze steady. "Not everyone's like Dad." I smiled at that. He always knew how to pull me back from my spirals. Things progressed quickly with Dylan. We went from casual dates to weekend getaways. I laughed more, felt lighter, but beneath the surface, something still felt missing. Tyler noticed. "You're quieter lately," he said one night after I came home from a weekend with Dylan. "Just tired," I lied. But I knew I'd tell him eventually. I always did. It was late on a Sunday when I finally told him. Tyler was in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping a glass of juice as if he didn't have a care in the world. He looked up when I walked in, and I must have looked lost in my own head because he tilted his head and said, "You okay, Mom?" I hesitated, then slid onto the bar stool across from him. "I stayed at Dylan's last night." He arched a brow, waiting, knowing there was more. "It happened," I said. "We had our first night together." He said nothing at first, just nodded slowly, giving me space. Tyler was always good at that, letting silence do some of the work before the words came. I looked down at my hands, twisted them into each other, then whispered. It didn't feel right. He frowned. "What do you mean?" I couldn't relax. I kept waiting for something to switch on, for my body to remember how to feel, but it didn't. I let out a small laugh, bitter and tired. It wasn't Dylan. He was sweet, patient, kind, but it was like I wasn't even there. Tyler walked around the counter and sat beside me, placing his hand gently on mine. "I don't know what's wrong with me," I admitted. "Not even your dad," not anyone. It's like I've spent my whole life waiting for something that never arrives. There's nothing wrong with you, Tyler said, his voice calm. You just don't connect like that easily. Not everyone does. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it's not about the person, it's about the energy, the moment. I leaned into him, grateful. Why does it make me feel broken, though? You're not broken, he said firmly. You're just not meant for shallow things. That's not a flaw. I squeezed his hand. Thank you. After that night, I kept seeing Dylan. I wanted to give it time, like Tyler said. I wanted to believe it could work. And in many ways, it should have. He did everything right. Complimented me, brought me little gifts, called just to say hello. But it never changed. Every time we were close, my body remained quiet. My mind wandered. I'd fake a smile, nod through conversations, but nothing inside me stirred. Nothing caught fire. Tyler noticed it. I didn't have to say much. I don't know why it's like this, I confessed one afternoon, lying on the couch while Tyler scrolled through a playlist, trying to find a song that matched the rainy mood. I hear women talk about how easy it is to feel good. I went on. Like it's this natural thing, to be swept up, to melt, to lose yourself. Why not me? Why does it feel like I'm chasing something that only lives in other people's stories? Tyler sat down beside me, the music forgotten. Maybe because you haven't met the person who makes you stop chasing. Maybe it's not supposed to feel forced. I hate that I keep talking about this with you, I sighed. I don't, he replied simply. I'd rather you talk to me than bottle it up. I looked at him, really looked at him. His calm, grounded presence, the wisdom behind those young eyes. He had always been more mature than his age, more emotionally intuitive than most men I'd met. It was part of why I confided in him so easily. Part of why, maybe, I compared others to him more than I should. And still, I didn't understand what I was missing, only that I was missing something. It was Tyler's idea. He called it a reset, something light fun. Let's get out of the house, he said. No Dylan, no stress, just you and me like old times. I agreed before he finished the sentence. The place he picked wasn't fancy, just a tucked-away little restaurant with dim lights, soft jazz playing, and the scent of garlic and wine in the air. The kind of place you'd never find unless you were really looking for it. We ordered seafood and a bottle of wine that neither of us could pronounce. I hadn't eaten all day, and after the first glass, I felt that comfortable hum behind my eyes, the kind that lets your shoulders drop and your thoughts wander. We laughed more than we had in weeks. Tyler was in rare form, cracking jokes, doing impressions of Dylan's overly polite voice and his obsession with self-optimization. I nearly snorted wine out of my nose. You know, he said suddenly, leaning forward, eyes soft, voice low. I don't get it. Don't get what? He looked at me, really looked. How men can be so close to you and not know how to treat you. You're you. That caught me off guard. I mean, he continued, smiling a little, if I were someone else at that table with you tonight, I'd be losing my mind trying to figure out how to keep your attention. You're beautiful, Mom. Not just in that standard way. You walk into a room, and it's like gravity shifts. I didn't know what to say. I laughed, unsure, flustered. You're being dramatic. No, he said, tone serious. I don't think I am. There was a pause. Then he added, you deserve someone who wants to give you the world. Someone who looks at you and thinks, how can I make her feel so good she forgets every man before me ever existed? His words landed somewhere deep, a place I didn't like to name. We stayed like that, caught in the hush, the space between a joke and something more. The car ride home was quiet, not in a bad way, more like a shared silence. We both felt it, I think. That energy, that shift. At home, I kicked off my heels and sat on the couch. Tyler poured another glass of wine and joined me. My head was light, my body warm, and the music we'd left playing before we left filled the room like a memory trying to happen. I laughed at something he said, don't even remember what, and he reached over, gently steadying me as I leaned too far to one side. Careful, he murmured. You're tipsy. I'm fine, I said, though I leaned into him. It started innocently. His arm around my shoulders, the way he pulled me a little closer, like I might fall over if he didn't. It wasn't new. We'd always been affectionate. But this was different. The laughter faded, and for a heartbeat, We just looked at each other. That kind of silence, the kind that swells and wraps around you, it changes things. I should have pulled away, should have said something, but I didn't, because in that moment, something unspoken passed between us. Not confusion, not curiosity, something older, like a truth we'd both known but never dared to name. I remember the way my heart beat, so loud it drowned out everything else. The wine, the music, the distant tick of the kitchen clock. It was just me and him, my son. And yet, in that breathless stillness, we weren't just that anymore. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. Slowly, tenderly, I felt something break open inside me. Not in fear or shame, but in recognition. A truth I had never let myself consider. When he leaned in, I didn't stop him. When our foreheads touched, I closed my eyes. The air around us pulsed, heavy and warm. I could still feel the imprint of his earlier words in my chest, words no one else had ever said to me like that. And then, nothing made sense and everything did. What happened next was unlike anything I'd experienced in my life. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't planned. It was a whisper between souls that had grown too close for too long, without either of them realizing it had become something else. Something delicate, trembling, and impossible. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to perform, or shrink, or wait for something to awaken. I was already alive, every inch of me. I wanted to sing, to cry, to laugh from relief. Afterward, the room was quiet again, but in a new way. A warm silence, a shared exhale. The morning light spilled softly through the curtains, and I sat on the edge of my bed, the blanket around my shoulders. I half expected regret to come flooding in, but it didn't. He walked in, still shirtless, hair tousled, eyes gentle. He sat beside me. I turned to him, unsure how to say what filled my chest. But I didn't have to. "Thank you," I whispered. "Only you could." His expression didn't change, only softened. "I would always do it," he said quietly, "if it meant you'd be happy." That day, I didn't try to explain it. Not to myself. Not to the world. It wasn't a story for anyone else's understanding. It was a feeling I'd been chasing my entire life, and it had finally come home. In him. In us. Life didn't pause. The world kept moving. Morning coffee, grocery lists, emails from work, the dull chatter of polite society. Nothing stopped. But inside, everything was different. We never said the words that morning, "What are we now?" because we already knew. It didn't need defining. It just was. A pulse under the skin. A new rhythm in the way we looked at each other across the room. A closeness that no longer needed excuses. But reality is a quiet weight. We both felt it. We didn't tell anyone. How could we? There's no language for what we had found. The world doesn't allow for this kind of joy, this kind of intimacy. And we weren't about to let something so real be reduced to whispers and judgment. So we lived two lives. Outwardly, nothing changed. I was still the woman who brought cupcakes to the office, still the neighbor who waved while watering her garden. Tyler was still my son, the one who helped carry groceries in, who laughed with me over old family videos. But behind closed doors, there was warmth. He would come into my room when the house was quiet, and the way he held me, it wasn't hurried or reckless. It was reverent, like I was the most sacred thing he'd ever touched. And maybe in his eyes I was. He loved making me happy. He'd say it like it was a promise, like it was his purpose. "You don't have to do anything," he'd whisper. "Just let me see you smile." And I did smile, more than I had in years. I felt alive again. I felt seen, not for my age or my history or the scars I carried quietly, but for the woman I still was underneath it all. I saw it in the way Tyler looked at me like I was the most radiant woman in any room. He made me feel young, not in the way time pretends to offer, but in the way your soul remembers how it once danced. Sometimes, I would catch my reflection in the mirror and smile at what I saw, not because I looked different, but because for once, I believed I was beautiful. There were days we'd walk together like friends, just like before. But in the little moments, in the glance he gave me when no one else was watching, in the brush of his hand against mine, there was a language only we spoke. We knew it couldn't last forever like that. Secrets have weight. But for a while, in that fragile in-between, we found something more than anyone around us ever could. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And real was all we had ever wanted.